Now, last week in the policy breakdown, I talked about the school to prison pipeline, and we got great response on the channel about it. So I want to talk about it again. And I know that there was some issues with the sound on the previous video. We're going to re-upload that so you can get the whole gist of it. But in the state of Michigan, in the Grand Rapids schools, 91,000 truant students were falling into the school to prison pipeline. And we talked about it last week, but I want to break this down here. So these students are truant, in which that means that they're not going to school, they're missing more than a couple days of school. And because they're missing these days of school, they sort of get, the police go out and try to find them, and there's possibility that their parents might get jail time, and they sort of get labeled, so on and so on and so on. But the truancy rates are up all across the state of Michigan. The truancy rate in Flint topped 22%, Jackson was 23%, Detroit has the lowest truancy rate of 7%. But again, this seems to be a problem. And I got to tell you, folks, when students decide not to show up to school, instead of building them a prison bed, or instead of finding ways to criminalize they're not showing up to school, we've got to find a way to love them back to school. Force them to go back to school and not put the labels on them that we've seen put on them in the past, and not create a situation where these students we're basically setting them up for a lifetime. And a lifetime is part of the juvenile the penal system. Now, I've talked about this on the show before, and I'm telling you, this stuff to me just blows my mind. When we start to create the situation where these kids are being labeled and their education is being sort of taken away from them. Now, think about it. In a lot of school districts, though not in Michigan, but in other parts of the country, these truant students if you're truant a couple number of days, they suspend you. Now listen to that for just a second. So if you decide not to come to school for a number of days, that when you come back to school, instead of them saying thank you, welcome back to school, they say, oh, we're going to suspend you for being truant. This is a huge problem in this country. We've got to stop. And I said this last week, and I'll say this again. We're only spending $17,000 on average, and that's a high average, per student, but we spend $30,000 per prisoner. $17,000 per student, $30,000 per prisoner, not to mention the fact that if we are, like I said last week, if they fail the third grade proficiency exam, we're building them a bed, so we're already inflating those costs into the future. So why aren't we trying to be more preventative? It's cheaper to keep them out of prison, America. It's cheaper to make them part of a working society, America. It is cheaper to educate them. So why aren't we doing that? Why are we more focused on labeling them? And why are we more focused on suspending them and expelling them in these harsh disciplinary policies instead of focusing on loving them and teaching them how to read, how to write, how to do arithmetic? America, if we want to fix our education system, if we want to solve the violence in our communities and the violence in our streets, it's going to require that we educate our young people and we show them alternatives. If the only alternative they see is prison because they spent from kindergarten to third, fourth, fifth grade, they're being expelled, they're being suspended, they're being given labels like you're mentally ill, or you have a behavioral disorder, or we're telling them they can't make it out, or we're telling them that they're not good enough to succeed, or we're saying they're not proficient. What do you expect from them? Huh? What do you expect for a third grade black or brown boy to say when you're saying you're not proficient, you're not good enough? Then they go out on the streets and they say, what's going to make me good enough? Dealing drugs, committing violence, committing crimes, having a life in prison. We have got to be the change that we want to see in our community, and that means the school-to-prison pipeline must be ruptured right now. We need a water main break, America, a water main break right now. Let's break this pipeline down. Let's let the water, which is, and what the water represents, at least in my mind, is education, opportunity, prosperity, freedom. Let's let these kids experience that and take them out of this tracked pipeline that guarantees that once they hit the 3rd grade, they're going right to the state penitentiary. But we can only do that if we take back our streets. We demand that our educators focus on our students and not focus on data, because we all know the truth that schools are built to educate students. They're not built to house numbers. We must be that change. We must demand high quality teachers. We must pay our teachers more than we pay any other profession. And that is how we solve the school to prison pipeline. The labeling stops right here.